Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to plunge through a whole stack of sources, pull out the really important bits of knowledge and insight, and share them with you. Today, we're embarking on a journey into something that, well, it might seem a bit distant at first glance, but I promise you, it touches the very core of human identity. We're talking about the global crisis of endangered languages. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today, really, is to understand why languages disappear, what unique knowledge, what perspectives are lost when they do, which is just tragic, and also what remarkable, sometimes really ingenious, efforts are being made to save them, especially for you, our curious listener, trying to stay informed. And you might find some surprising things. For instance, you probably assume, right, that just being near other languages is bad news for a smaller one. But our sources show it's much more nuanced. Pretty fascinating, actually. Today, we're zeroing in on Scottish Gaelic. It's a language, deeply rooted in Scotland's history, but it's been fighting for survival for centuries. And we've got a lot to draw on. Academic theses, global research papers, articles on tech and revitalization. Quite the range.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here and really vital to grasp is that this isn't just about words. Not at all. We're talking about entire ways of seeing the world, interacting with it. Every language is essentially a unique, a natural experiment in human communication, a different window. Globally, we've got around 7,000 languages right now. But the really alarming thing, the stark truth, is that somewhere between 50 and maybe even 90% of them, they could be severely endangered or just gone by 2100. Estimates suggest we're losing a language maybe every 1 to 3 months.
Wow, every few months.
Yeah. It's not just a linguistic issue. It's profoundly cultural, intellectual, ethical. It affects us all. UNESCO actually keeps track of this. They evaluate language vitality using factors like intergenerational transmission, basically. Is it being passed down naturally from parents to kids? They also look at the number of speakers, community attitudes, things like that. And they classify languages, from safe to extinct. And Scottish Gaelic, well, right now it sits at definitively endangered.
Definitively endangered.
Which means critically that the youngest speakers are mostly older folks. They're just not passing it on as a first language anymore.
That's a truly sobering statistic. To hear Gaelic is definitively endangered. I mean, that sounds like it's right on the edge. So what specific historical pressures pushed it there? How did that early decline actually, happen?
It's a long and complex story. There were gradual shifts, but also some really abrupt, quite brutal interventions. Scottish Gaelic, it developed from Old Irish around 500 CE over in what was then Dal Riata, and for centuries it absolutely flourished. It was tied up with Scotland's big political plans, wars, amazing poetry. But its history is also just setback after setback. The early decline, it started kind of subtly. It lost ground to Norman French among the aristocracy. Then over time, Anglian speech, what later became English or Scots, it really took hold in the lowlands. And that effectively pushed Gaelic speakers further north and west into the Highlands and the Hebrides Islands.
So a sort of geographic and social retreat, pushed to the margins.
Exactly. And you even see this reflected way up high in the royal court. Take King Malcolm III. After his second marriage, his kids' names started shifting, away from traditional Gaelic ones like Duncan and Donald towards more Anglian names like Edward and David.
That's a small detail, but telling, isn't it?
It really is. It signals that linguistic shift, that cultural preference starting to change, even at the very top.
Fascinating. But I guess that slow erosion must have ramped up dramatically because of, well, direct conflict in politics, language becoming a tool in the fight.
Oh, absolutely. This is where, it gets really interesting, as you might say, or rather, really quite harsh. Legislation and conflict were actively used to try and dismantle Gaelic. Think about the Statutes of Iona back in 1609. This was King James VI, James I of England, his infamous scheme to civilize the Highlands. And it was just catastrophic for Gaelic culture. It wasn't just banning old clan ways. Critically, it required clan chiefs to send their eldest kids to lowland schools. Why? Specifically to learn English.
Wow.
Utterly deliberate, a calculated effort to cut those linguistic and cultural ties for the next generation of leaders, assimilate them.
That's incredibly insidious, targeting the kids, the future leaders. What came after those early attacks?
Well, fast forward about 150 years, and you get the Battle of Culloden in 1746.
Right.
A short, incredibly bloody battle, only about 40 minutes, but it decisively ended the Jacobite uprising. And the aftermath was devastating. It led directly to the brutal Highland clearances.
The clearances, such a tragic period. How did they hit the language specifically?
Well, from about 1750 to 1860, the clearances meant mass eviction. Gaelic-speaking Highlanders forced off their ancestral lands. And who replaced them? often English-speaking sheep farmers. There's a poignant poem by John McLaughlin of Rahoy lamenting the unpleasant noise of sheep in the English language.
That says it all, really.
It does. This forced exodus literally severed the connection between the language and the land. Families scattered, communities broken up, the places where Gaelic thrived were just dismantled. And then, as if that wasn't enough, came the Education Act of 1872. Primary education became compulsory, right? But it banned Scottish Gaelic from schools, totally banned it. Kids were often physically punished for speaking their own language.
Punished for speaking Gaelic. That's genuinely heartbreaking. It must have created such a deep wound.
It absolutely did. That policy fostered this pervasive sense of shame. You had a whole generation internalizing the message that English was the language of progress, of opportunity. So they rejected their own heritage language, often discouraged their own children from speaking it just to spare them that same humiliation. It was systematic suppression, really, on every front.
It's just gut-wrenching to hear how a language, once so vibrant, was so systematically pushed to the edge. Social pressure, political pressure, then outright bans in schools. The cumulative effect, as our sources put it, left Gaelic basically on government-funded life support. It stopped getting that natural flow of new words, slang, the stuff that keeps a language alive and evolving. And today, only about 1% of Scots speak it. It really shows how these big systemic forces can just suffocate a language. But can this actually be reversed? Is there any glimmer of hope now?
There absolutely is, yeah. Despite that really dire history, there's a concerted and I think truly inspiring effort today to breathe new life into Scottish Gaelic. And it's a real deliberate shift from those earlier times when laws were used to stamp it out. This raises an important question, though. Can you actually reverse centuries of decline? Well, look at the Gaelic Language Act of 2005. That officially recognized Gaelic, gave it equal respect, equal status to English.
Oh.
It also set a board in Gàidhlig, that's the main Gaelic development body. Their job is to integrate the language into public services, government offices, even bilingual signs on police cars.
Okay, so a real shift in policy.
A profound reversal in attitude from the government, from suppression to actual promotion.
That's a powerful statement. Does that kind of top-down support actually make a difference on the ground?
It really seems to, and we can look elsewhere for comparison. Think about Welsh.
Mm-hmm.
Both languages were outlawed, face huge pressure, but Welsh has seen this remarkable turnaround, a big increase in younger speakers. The Welsh government's aiming for 1 million speakers by 2050.
1 million. Wow.
Yeah. It shows that sustained government support, plus that strong community resistance, it can make a difference. You see similar resilience with Basque Euskara surviving centuries of persecution, surrounded by dominant languages. And crucially for Gaelic, getting it back into schools is proving vital. It's now available in 14 out of 34 local authorities, and there's a rapid increase in learners, all ages.
That's fantastic news. And I remember reading something in the sources about cognitive benefits. Can you expand on that? Because that's kind of an aha moment. It's not just preservation, it's actual gain.
Yes, exactly. That's the insight. It's not just about preserving something old. It's about gaining real, measurable cognitive advantages, even if you learn later in life. There was this compelling research study in 2020. It showed that new speakers, people who started learning Gaelic after age 5, they actually did better on complex cognitive and linguistic tasks than monolingual speakers. Yeah. Better results. It just underscores the tangible benefits of bilingualism. It kind of challenges that old idea that learning a second language later isn't as good. That's a powerful argument for bilingual education right there.
That is a powerful argument. So beyond the government and schools, how is Gaelic finding maybe unexpected help? Like in popular culture and tech, it's really quite inspiring, some of this. Take the Outlander effect. You know, the TV show, hugely popular internationally, launched in 2014, and it uses Scottish Gaelic all the time. Dialogue, story, music.
Right, I've heard about that.
That exposure sparked this massive global interest in Scotland, its culture. Led to more tourism, sure, but also much greater awareness and, crucially, appreciation for the language itself. Creative Scotland actually supported this, seeing the impact.
That's fascinating how pop culture can do that.
And then you've got the, maybe surprising, power of language apps. Duolingo launched its Scottish Gaelic course in 2019. It pulled in over 1 million learners worldwide. Now, okay, there are debates, right? Can apps alone make you fluent? Probably not fully conversational.
That's a fair point.
But still, it vastly expands the reach, the awareness, doesn't it? And our sources even mention this really innovative personal project, a voice-first approach to learning Gaelic. It focuses intensely on the sounds of the language, using emojis to match phrases with a codified IPA system, the International Phonetic Alphabet.
Right, the universal system for sound.
Exactly. Using that for point-scoring games, it's a really creative, modern way to tackle some challenges like missing historical terms and get learners engaged with the sound, the structure, almost like a game.
That project really highlights how specific tech can target specific problems. But stepping back, how is technology helping language revitalization more broadly around the world?
Well, globally, tech is proving indispensable, really. But what's often missed is how crucial a needs-based approach is. It means focusing on what a community actually needs for learning and preservation, rather than just grabbing the newest, shiniest app. Like our sources mention a teacher, Roseanne. She just wanted her students practicing breakfast table chat. Maybe she uses simple phone recording apps because that's what her students have. It fits the curriculum.
Right, practical.
Or Paulo, a program manager. Maybe he picks WordPress for an online course with lots of audio because it fits his budget and tech goals for hosting sound files, even if other platforms look fancier. It's about what works for them.
That makes total sense. Meet people where they are. So what kind of tools are proving most useful then? There's a huge range, and it's always evolving. For documentation, which is just essential, we're way beyond basic Word docs now. We have advanced digital archives like the Miami, Illinois Digital Archive or the Passamaquoddy Malisate Online Dictionary. Amazing resources. And critically, the focus now is capturing natural, everyday talk and even paralinguistic stuff, facial expressions, gestures through video, because so much communication is nonverbal, right?
Lost in writing.
Exactly. Then for teaching and learning, the options are vast. Language apps like Duolingo, sure, online courses, learning management systems, LMSs like Canvas, Google Classroom, specific tools for listening, Speaking Bookaroo, animation apps like Volky, Sock Puppets, video editors like iMovie, and for reading, writing, vocab online libraries, collaborative tools like Google Docs, flashcard apps like Quizlet. It's a whole ecosystem.
That's quite the toolkit.
Yeah.
But with all this tech, there must be challenges, right? Pitfalls. It can't be a perfect fix.
Oh, absolutely not. And you've hit a key point. We need, a healthy skepticism. There are big challenges around safety, privacy, ownership of materials, especially for Indigenous and minority communities dealing with their cultural heritage. That's huge. Plus, the cost, the time needed, the learning curve for new tools, those are real barriers. Technology as the source of stress, it's a tool to extend learning. It's not a silver bullet. It has to serve the community's goals, not the other way around.
Right. Empowerment, not replacement.
Yeah.
What about building community and support, especially for teachers who might feel isolated?
Yeah, that's where tech can really shine, connecting people. The trainers model, like workshops in Costa Rica equipping local teachers with tech skills, that's super effective for building local capacity. And tech fosters great teacher support networks, social media groups, online resource centers. It combats that isolation. There's a really inspiring success story from the Passamaquoddy community in Maine. Margaret Apt used video feedback, capturing elders just talking naturally. That work led directly to Immersion Preschools, a big online dictionary. And it inspired other groups, like the mixed community in Mexico, to use similar community-led, tech-supported methods.
That's incredible.
It shows how genuine grassroots efforts, when they're amplified by the right tools, can make a massive difference.
That Passamaquoddy story is genuinely inspiring. Grassroots efforts, smart tech choices, making a real impact. But let's zoom out again now to the bigger picture. There's this recent global analysis looking at over 6,500 languages, and it turned up some really surprising findings about endangerment. This is where we might need to challenge some common ideas about why languages disappear. So if I'm getting this right, the big takeaway isn't just what causes language loss, but maybe more importantly, what doesn't. The crucial insight from this huge study is contact with other languages per se is not a driver of language loss.
Exactly.
That really flips the script on the common assumption, doesn't it? That just being near other languages is the danger. In fact, it says languages in contact with more languages can actually have lower endangerment levels on average.
Right, because communities in regular contact often just become multilingual. They learn to switch languages, thrive in diversity, without necessarily ditching their first language.
Okay. So it's not just contact itself. What are the key predictors then, according to this research?
Well, the predictors are more nuanced, more systemic. The two biggest ones identified were road density and average years of schooling.
Okay, that's fascinating and kind of counterintuitive. Let's take road density first. How do more roads lead to languages being more endangered?
It's not the tarmac itself, obviously, it's what the roads enable. Higher road density is strongly linked to more endangerment. Not because of simple contact, but because roads connect remote communities to bigger towns, urban centers. This changes commerce, migration, how government interacts with people. Economic opportunities shift towards those towns. So people often need to learn the dominant lingua francas, the common languages for work, for trade, for education.
Oh, okay.
And that can inadvertently pull younger generations towards those dominant languages, making them seem more useful, maybe more prestigious than their heritage language.
So it's like an economic and social gravity pulling people, not just being neighbors.
Okay.
And the other one, average years of schooling, that sounds even weirder. More education means more language endangerment. How does that work?
It is certainly counterintuitive, yeah. But the data is pretty clear on this one. Higher average years of schooling correlates with greater language endangerment. What this points to is the negative impact of formal education systems where, historically and often still today, bilingual education just isn't supported. Or it's actively discouraged.
Right, like the Gaelic example earlier.
Exactly. These systems often use immersion models with no space for the kids' mother tongues. They effectively force children to abandon their heritage language to succeed in the language of instruction. It's a systematic devaluing of the mother tongue happening within a really powerful institution, and that cuts off intergenerational transmission.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the urgency here feels pretty immense. Language loss tripling in 40 years, 1,500 languages becoming sleeping, no L1 speakers left by 2100. That's just staggering.
It creates what researchers call an extinction debt. It's the delayed effect of that broken transmission chain. But it's really important to stress, these are predictions based on current trends if we don't intervene. They're not inevitable.
Okay, that's crucial. There's still time.
Yes. It means there's an urgent, profound need for investment. In documentation, remember, a third of these languages have barely any records. We need robust, culturally sensitive, bilingual education, strong community-led initiatives that empower the speakers themselves. Many scholars see linguistic diversity like biodiversity, language endangerment like wildlife endangerment. But a key difference is species extinction often involves intrinsic biological traits, language endangerment, mostly driven by external factors, social, economic, political, and those factors are, as the research puts it, amenable to manipulation. We can change this. The power is there. It just needs collective will and action.
Absolutely. Wow. We've really covered some ground. Journeyed through the tough history of Scottish Gaelic, seen these inspiring creative efforts to revive it, and got a much deeper handle on the global forces at play, even challenging some assumptions. So what does this all mean for you, listening right now? The life or death of a language isn't just about preserving old sounds. It's about safeguarding unique ways of thinking, entire cultures, even those real cognitive benefits we talked about. Your awareness, your support for linguistic diversity, even small things like backing local cultural projects or just exploring a new language on an app, it all adds up. It contributes to this vital global effort to keep this incredible human legacy alive. And maybe a final provocative thought to leave you with. Think about this. In a world that feels increasingly dominated by just a few big languages, where information seems everywhere, what unique insights, what different understandings might you gain by exploring a language really different from your own? Maybe one like Scottish Gaelic. How might that challenge your own, correct, monolingual mindset? And what unspoken knowledge, what different ways of being human might it reveal? Something to think about.